Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, he is a real-life Rocky. He's been going the distance in the legal world for some time now, but he's about to take on a new challenger. His story just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I love the journey of entrepreneurs because entrepreneurs think outside the box. They do things differently. And I can't think of a better person to talk about that than Rocky Dhir. He's the CEO and president of Atlas Legal Research. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, thanks, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, I want to hear your entrepreneur journey because you started a unique business and your clients are lawyers.
They are. Don't hold that against me. Guilty as charged. But yeah, so I went to law school. I graduated in 1999, right? The last millennium. That's crazy, right? That's crazy to me. But I remember when I came out of law school, I started a federal clerkship here in Dallas with Jerry Buckmeyer, the Honorable Jerry Buckmeyer, who at the time was the chief judge for the United States District Court for the Northern District of Texas. Now, Judge Buckmeyer was a great legal humorist. He cut it up all the time. He took the law very seriously, didn't take himself very seriously, which was an amazing combination for a jurist and for a boss. Now, when I was working for him, there was an article that came out in, I think it was February or March of 2000. And it was in the Texas Lawyer magazine, and it had to do with in-house legal counsel kind of getting tired of the big bills that they were getting from their lawyers. Because we like to bill by the hour, and it's 15 minutes, and you talk to us for 3 minutes, and we're going to bill you for the 15. I mean, it's true. It happens. Okay. And there's reasons that it happens that way, but there was some pushback from a lot of the in-house legal departments and the corporations. And so I started to think that how do you kind of solve that problem? The other side of the problem was, by and large, in court, we would see that the legal briefs written by the big firms were just crisp. I mean, they were well written. They were polished, and then you'd see the ones coming from the smaller offices, the solo practitioners. And these briefs oftentimes had issues, citation style, whatever. And it was very easy as somebody sitting in an ivory tower to sit there and just assume that we had better lawyers coming from big firms. But when I saw these lawyers in court fighting for their clients, it was, it goes back to the boxing analogy. I mean, these guys were going toe to toe and they were going the distance and they were fighting it out. So these were excellent lawyers on both sides. One just had more resources. So the question was, how do you bring the resource level up so that ultimately clients get the best legal representation they can while still, not having to pay through the nose? And so it was a matter of trying to equalize that a little bit. So working for the judge, one of the skills that I had to develop very quickly was legal research and legal writing. So an issue comes up, there's a brief, you got to research the heck out of it and have everything really thorough so you can write an opinion for the judge. The judge can then review and decide how he, in that case he, wanted to change it, or if he wanted to change it, and what changes need to be made. So I thought, let's take that and figure out how to mass produce it. At the time, you might remember in 2000, all the way up to about 2010, there was this big movement of sending work overseas, most notably to India. And in case you can't tell, I am not Norwegian. I'm Indian, right? And so I had people in India that I kind of had as contacts. So I thought, let me go there and see if we can figure out a way to send this kind of work overseas. It was very high-end legal work. We'd have to train people on how to do it. But I thought, if we can do that, then we can start to bridge that gap a little bit. So I set that up. We did the India thing for about 10 years. And then starting in 2010, and it really took us about a 3-year period to finish it out. We moved everything back to the United States. And so now we're 100% US based, everything's American made. But that was kind of the journey. The journey was how to fulfill a pain point, how to solve it.
And you've become really a thought leader across the state. In
I
fact,
am?
You,
Well, when did that happen?
we've got video of you speaking to the State Bar of Texas, and I know you also host a very popular State Bar podcast. How did you find yourself in a position of being an authority?
I didn't know I was. This is new. I need to look that up. Like, what exactly is an authority and how do I fit that definition? This is new to me. But, I think what happened was when you do something a little off the wall, and for lawyers, we have a very low threshold for what is off the wall, right? I mean, we're not people that like change. We don't like to try anything new. And so when they found out that I'm sending legal work to India, there were some lawyers who just thought this guy's lost his marbles. They were probably correct. Then there were others who kind of thought, okay, this is cool. Let's study this a little bit. And so they would ask me to come talk about legal innovation, legal change, and what lawyers can learn from other disciplines. And so, I think when you try something new, invariably people want to learn the story and they want to see what did you learn from it and what can they take from it. And that's kind of how I got the opportunity to speak. And do things like what you just saw.
And you got a big write-up in D Magazine. We're going to put that on the screen so people can see that. That's cool. I mean, that's something that I would hang on my wall.
Well, except for the legs, yes. I mean, it's right there for the world to see. But, so my good friend Barry Schlochter, he's the author of that article. He actually did a piece on my company and the whole setup in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Back in, I want to say it was 2003, 2004. And then he reached out again in 2013 and said, what's going on with you now? I want to do a follow-up piece. And when I told him we brought everything back to the United States, you could see the light bulb go off. And he said, okay, we need to do a piece about that. And so, we did the interview, and then, we had the photographer come out, and he's like, look, just do what you normally would do. And I guess this was all pre-COVID, but I ended up wearing the tie on the top and the shorts on the bottom. I mean, I was ahead of my time on that one thing, just that one thing.
Well, you're also kind of a fish out of water in the legal community. I mean, if you think about the typical lawyer, they're like buttoned down and kind of staid, and you're a funny guy. In fact, I want you to share the story of how you got a job by doing imitations.
With Judge Buckmeyer. Okay, so, I think I will say this about most lawyers that I've met. Yes, they're very conservative, and we do as a group tend to be kind of reserved, and for good reason. I mean, at the end of the day, as lawyers, we are expected to play a very important role, and that is that we're trying to take people's pain. And in the law, in medicine, and with CPAs, we're always dealing with something not pleasant, something unpleasant, right? So with lawyers, we're dealing with conflict more often than not. Or if people are trying to make a deal together, we're trying to make sure that we're foreseeing where the conflict could be. But it's never something really happy as a lawyer when you're working on that, with the exception of adoptions. That's the one place where I'd say lawyers really they get to have a happy job. But by and large, we're dealing with pain. And so we have to be able to come in there with the right demeanor to put people at ease. So I think there's a reason why lawyers tend to be a bit more, straight and narrow with that. I've never been able to kind of muster the discipline to just keep a straight face at all times. And so, I tend to cut loose a little bit, and that's why Judge Buckmeyer and I kind of paired up. So it was in my first year of law school. I was at the University of Michigan, where I graduated law school. And, first year law students have a hard time finding summer internships. And the reason is firms don't know, number one, are you gonna stick through and do the law school thing? Number two, are you going to stay in the city that you do the internship? I mean, they'll spend all this money on you, come and wine and dine you, show you their firm, and then 2 years later, you decide I'm gonna go to a different city. So I had that same problem. And being in Michigan, when I'd come down to Dallas and say, I wanna do a summer internship, the question invariably and justifiably was, are you really gonna come to Dallas, or are you gonna go to New York or San Francisco or someplace else? So I was walking along despondent. It was one day in January of my first year of law school. So this would have been This has been what, 1997, January of 1997. I'm walking around campus, and this one 3L, he said, where are you going to go this summer? And I was like, you had to ask me that question. You had to ask me the one question I don't want to answer. And so when I talked to him about my pain and my travails of not being able to find a summer internship, he said, what you need to do is reach out to federal judges in your city. And so he said, if you're from Dallas, look at Dallas and Fort Worth, find the federal judges and see if you can get an internship. It's unpaid, but man, it's a great experience. So I sent out, and this dates me a little bit, dates us. Okay, I sent faxes.
Yes, I remember the
You remember
fax.
faxes? Yes. So I sent out these. I reached out to each of the federal judges' chambers, and I said, I'm a first year at Michigan. I really want to come work for you. And by and large, a lot of them were saying, well, we don't look at that until later. Judge Buckmeyer's chambers, I still remember. Her name was Deborah. She was one of the law clerks who ended up becoming somebody that I ended up working under, and she was fantastic. So Deborah picks up and she says, we don't look at summer interns until April. I said, but next week, I'm going to be in town for spring break, which was true. This was February of 1997. I said, is there any way you can interview me? And I said, anytime, day or night, I'll be there. You want me to bring cookies? I'll do it. And she said, fax us your resume. So I faxed it over. 90 minutes later, I get a call saying, we'll meet you on Wednesday morning.
Wow.
And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. They see the greatness. I mean, these people understand what they're working with. Finally, somebody has recognized my inherent talents. And so I go in for the interview, and they were all very polite, very, very professional, asked me, how's law school? You grew up in Dallas, it's so great. Then came the zinger question. Then I realized why they called me in for the interview. On my resume, at the very bottom, it says skills, special interests, and I put celebrity impersonations. I'd forgotten that I had done that.
Wow.
I put that down there. And so the law clerk said, which impersonations can you do? And I said, well, I can do Bill Clinton, I can do Ross Perot, I can do Kermit the Frog. I went through the whole list. Sadly, a lot of these are no longer relevant to the modern lexicon. Like when you say Ross Perot, there are young people going, who is that? Is he a YouTuber? No, but so I'm having to, but at that time, these were all, names in the news. And so I said, okay, they tested me out. They said, we want to hear a bit, Bill Clinton. And I said, well, I don't mind coming into this job. And I saw the ladies while I was walking into the courthouse. And I don't know how many of them are criminal defendants, but if they're going into the slammer, I'll go in there with them. And, and they said, okay, sit right here. And they went, and then a couple of minutes later, they said, come in and meet the judge. So I go in and meet the judge. And he said, he was, again, very gracious man, and asked me the questions that you would normally ask. What kind of law do you want to do? How do you like law school? What's your favorite subject? And they said, oh, I understand you do celebrity impersonations. I said, I've been known to do them from time to time. And so he said, tell you what, we're going to go to lunch. And when I give you the signal, I want you to do Kermit the Frog impersonating Ross Perot. Okay, I'm glad you asked it right then, because I needed time to process.
Yes.
Right. So then we go to lunch, and we went to the Belo Mansion, which is now, they've changed the name, but it's the headquarters of the Dallas Bar Association. So we went there for lunch, and I'm looking over at him, and I'm taking really small bites, because what if he gives me the signal, and I've got like salad in my mouth, so I'm doing this whole thing looking, never gives me the signal. We get back to chambers, and his secretary, Linda, she turns and goes, Judge old Cooch, you never gave him the signal. He's like, oh, right. And then he gathers in the court security officers.
Oh, gosh.
He brings in magistrate judges from next door. He assembles an audience. He said, this is Rocky. He does impersonations, including Kermit the Frog and Ross Perot.
No pressure.
No pressure at all, right? So I was like, we did just have lunch. I said, I have to say, there were a lot of flies in the lunch, which I happen to appreciate. And so that was number one, right? And then came the Ross Perot. It was, and it had to be something to the effect of, I don't remember exactly what I did, but it was, I can't believe you'd take a free internship and you'd have to pay for parking and pay for gas. This is highway robbery. What kind of a stupid person would take a job like this? I wouldn't hire you as an intern any day of the week, including 2 Sundays. And so then, okay, now I've got to combine the two, right? So
Whenever I go into McDonald's, I'm asking them, can I get fries with that?
And that just, so then he said, you're hired. And that's how I got the job, to be his summer intern. Then at the end of the internship, I learned how to impersonate Buckmeyer. So then he gave me a job to be his law clerk.
I love this story. Okay, so you've seen how funny he is. He's literally Rocky's taking on a new challenger, is the career of stand-up comedy. We've got a clip. Let's go ahead and roll it now.
Now, when you heard the name Rocky, I bet you weren't expecting this. That boy doesn't look like a boxer. He don't look like he ever played any sport in his life. He might have been in a spelling bee one time and lost. Like, you guys remember how Muhammad Ali used to march on the stage and go, say my name, say my name. That had me out of breath, okay? The Indian stallion, if there were one, would be like, I bet you cannot spell my name. It is Bala Subramaniam Krishna Murthy. And if you want to spell it, you will need a GoFundMe. Because you will have to buy a vowel. Many, many, many vowels. By the way, there's a reason my people do not make bobblehead dolls. They're a little too close to life. We tried to stop it, but it just continues down this way. And then that's how there's over 1 billion of us.
Hilarious. Well, I have to tell you.
Sorry, Mom.
I have so much respect for you, because I think anybody who puts themselves out there as, I'm going to entertain you, I'm going to be funny, is putting a tremendous amount of pressure on themselves.
It's a little daunting at first, to get up there. And I respect anybody. Like, if they're at an open mic and they're trying comedy for the first time, or somebody comes up and says, I really want to do this, hats off to you. Whether it's comedy, whether it's music, sketch, whatever it is you're trying to do. I think when you get up in front of an audience, you're trying to give them a gift at the end of the day. And that's what attracted me to stand-up comedy. Life is hard for people, right? There's mortgages, and there's getting your kids from point A to point B, and there's you dealing with your relationships, and there's managing your health. There's all these pressures we have as adults, and even some kids have those same pressures. And so trying to muddle through that on a day-to-day basis, it can get a little tiresome.
Okay, Rocky, where do you see all this going? Because, you have this amazing firm that's doing very well, and then you have this budding comedy career that is taking off. Where do you see this all going?
Well,
can the two work together?
Well, I think so. So I think, first of all, if comedy if it turns out to be nothing else than just a really fun hobby, I'm okay with that. If it turns out me getting a Netflix special, hey, all right, but
Call me.
I'm here. Let's do it. I'll still come back to this studio, because this is you're my boy.
I discovered you, and as your agent, I take the standard 95%.
That's better than the deal I would have written myself as a lawyer. Okay, I'm just saying. But I do see it. I do see the two worlds coming together. And here's what it is. Really, as business people, when we communicate, a lot of times we lose sight of how to make communication impactful, right? We're thinking more about how to get our point across, not about how to make it memorable and how to make people walk away with something that makes them want to call us back later or want to work with us again. Lawyers have this problem a lot, but they're not the only ones. You look at anybody, you see those lengthy emails, you sit in meetings, you sit in a talk of any kind, in any field. And it's usually somebody with a PowerPoint. They're reading from the PowerPoint, which is one of my pet peeves. Instead, what if you put in the time and the effort and you had the tools to be able to take that communication and make it impactful, make it to where people are walking away with something of value that they remember.
Wow.
And I'm going to give you an example that from you, right? So years ago, this was probably 2004, if I had to guess. You gave a talk at the Bilo Mansion at the Dallas Bar Association headquarters, and it was about how to get yourself on the news, telling lawyers, how do you get on the news? Because every lawyer we all want to be on the news, right? We're like, there I am, and we go tell our family members, tune in, and I'm going to be on there for 20 seconds, but it's the best 20 seconds ever. And so, your advice was, make sure you find a slow news day and let the news anchors and the powers that be know that you're available when news is slow. And I don't know that we have slow news days anymore, but in those days we did. And but I remembered that because it was a memorable, piece of advice that people could take away. And so if you can make communication like that, where people can remember it 17, 18 years later, you've done your job. And so I want to help people do that while still entertaining them and making them laugh. So
I think you are amazing. We're going to have you back again. We're going to end with the website, which is atlaslegal.com. Rocky Dhir, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.